That is awesome. Now, talk to me. You know, not during the season, maybe on a Friday night or Saturday night. If our listeners are out there listening, and maybe they're going to make a trip down to New York City, do you guys have a favorite place in New York you like to go and have dinner? Would you recommend a place that you guys like to go?
Towers Restaurant.
Okay.
And that's one of the better ones. It's up just off of Central Park.
Okay.
But the best steak is Del Frisco's. Okay.
I've heard of that place.
The best steak in Jersey, bar none, is the River Palm Terrace. That's our absolute favorite.
Absolutely. Let's
get advertised.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think they need to pay you like $100 for that mention. I got to tell you, working in New York obviously is a huge city. Winning the Super Bowl obviously puts you guys on the national map. Other than probably the president, because I think every Super Bowl champion meets the president. But anybody famous you've met since working in New York that you've either just bumped into or that has come to the stadium that you guys have met either before or after the Super Bowl?
My wife's sitting there listening to this right now and he's gonna say Tony Soprano.
James Gandolfini.
Paulie Walnuts too.
All right.
That was great. But you know, Kath and I, we were fortunate, you know, because the Giants asked us to do a lot because our kids are growing. It's just her and I, and so it was easy for us to be able to go to a lot of events. And yeah, some of the people that I met, you know, the most impressive people that I met was the Wounded Warriors at Walter Reed Hospital. That was one of the most. I went to the White House and I saw President Bush, and that was okay, but it wasn't anything compared to going to that hospital and talking and just seeing the spirit of our troops that came back. And I mean, these guys had no legs, no arms, they're all shut up. You know, it was scary sights walking in those rooms.
Absolutely.
And so Kath and I also were able to go to a Wounded Warrior event, and that's where we met Tony Soprano and Paulie. You know, you know, James Gandolfini and Tony Sperrio. But anyways. But we had a chance to do that and got to go to Leatherneck Ball because I was in the Marine Corps, you know, and so that's the part that's been so exciting for us. This next month we're going to 8th and I. We have the silent, you know, drill team, and we're going to be able to see that down in Washington D.C. So that's opened up a lot of avenues because I'm an avid and hardcore Marine, but the biggest thing was those Wounded Warriors. That was the most impressive group that we had a chance to meet.
That's in you know, it's so neat that the game actually, you know, the Super Bowl when it gets put on the Armed Force Radio Network and the men and women you know, fighting for our country and the freedoms across the world can actually hear the games and stuff. And you know, you guys, while you're doing your job, I think you bring a lot to them. I know it's just a game that you guys are playing, but I think sometimes that brings a slice of home to them. I know it meant a lot in 1990 when Desert Storm was going on, of course, and that Super Bowl between the Bills and Giants, and that was a big thing when they could watch the Super Bowl. I think that, you know, it just brings back a slice of Americana, and I think the storyline going into the Super Bowl, with you guys being the underdogs and the Patriots going in undefeated, I think people just really got caught up in it, and it was one of the more popular Super Bowls, and I'm only going to be 32 tomorrow, but one of the more popular Super Bowls I remember. You've been around football for a long time. You, of course, had a front row seat, but were you taken back as to how into everybody seemed to be in this year's Super Bowl?
Well, you know, going into that game, we were just focused on being able to, you know, up one notch from the last game of the season. You know, the beauty of that game is that we played the Patriots in the last game. Nobody said anything about how many times the defensive line hit them. We hit them more than anybody else did the whole season in that game. And so all we did was we studied that tape over and over and over again and focused on it, and we were able to improve upon it, which that doesn't always happen, but we were able to improve upon it, and it made a big factor, you know, in that game, and you know, you gotta stop those quarterbacks. You just have to. And you know that's why they get paid so much money. You know,
that's why they wear those red jerseys in practice, so you can't touch them.
We just like them all.
I can tell.
I really, you know, well, Tom Brady and I had history. You know, when I was at Cal, Berkeley, I was recruiting coordinator, and he was right across the bay, and he was coming with Steve Mariucci and us, and he had a top 5 scholarship, and he took a bottom 5 scholarship to Michigan. Okay? Then there was this game in New England called Tuck Rule, okay?
That's right.
So him and I had history, you know, and then plus that last game of the season, they pulled that one off. So we were ready to beat him up.
Let me ask you this. You talk about the game. I think that was a huge game, the last game of the season. But in my opinion, I feel the turning point, in my opinion, really doesn't mean anything. Yours is going to mean much more. I think the Bills win. I think and Mickey, the Southern Tier Sports Princess, by the way, was at that game at Ralph Wilson Stadium. I think that was a big win for you guys, but in your opinion, where was the turning point in this season for you guys?
Yeah, you're right on both of them. I think both games. You're right. The Bills was the building block, you know, and then that last game with the Patriots. And that gave our team a lot of confidence. I mean, this team's undefeated, you know, and we can play them as tough as we did that night.
Sure.
You know, it gave us a lot of confidence going into the playoffs, and we really became a team. You know, one of the coolest things that I saw in my time was we're in Rich Stadium, and all the guys, it was in the fourth quarter, and we were really taking control of that game at that time. And the whole defense was standing around the heater. And it reminded me of that scene in Rocky where they were around the barrels singing.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Absolutely.
And the defense was there, and they were having a good time and chatting with each other. But you could see the brotherhood of men. You could see them coming together. And everybody was rooting for the offense, and everybody was rooting for the defense, and we root for the special teams. And it was really a lot of unselfish play, and that's what a team is, and that's what Coach Coughlin always preaches: team first, team first, team first, and it worked.
In studio with us for the first time ever, a defensive line coach for the New York Giants, world champion New York Giants, Mike Waufle. Now, I'm assuming, are you on the sidelines, or are you up in a booth?
You put me in the booth, that thing would be torn apart.
Okay, all right. So you were actually on the sidelines.
Always have.
During the Green Bay game.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Coldest I've ever been.
I've
coached some cold games in my lifetime.
Now, my mom, my parents heard you were coming on. My mother calls me. The one question she wants to know, she doesn't want to know anything about the Super Bowl parade or anything. She wants to know, she's concerned about Coach. She was worried about his cheeks. How is he doing? Is his cheeks okay?
Yeah,
she wanted to call the police. She was like, I'm going to call the Green Bay police. They need to help him out. That is wrong that the team is letting him stay out there right now.
You know, the defensive line wouldn't let me wear anything either because they were wearing sleeves, you know.
Wow.
My face was chapped just like that.
Wow.
And I went in I looked in the mirror just before I went into the shower, and I was going, oh my God, is this going to turn into frostbite?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know. You know, I came out of the shower and I was normal. And I was
really okay.
Yeah, so it went away.
Okay, it did. That was cold. I mean, did you have to move? I mean, standing still must have made you much colder at that point, correct?
Well, you know, you just block it out.
You just block it out. That's a Marine talking, I think, right there. I don't think that if I was in that situation, I don't think blocking it out probably would be the method that I would have to use. I would actually probably be just laying on the heater at that point.
Well, the Marines and frozen chosen in Korea did not know that the game was going to be over within 2.5 hours.
That is true. That is a very great point. Do you now? I mean, you seem like a pretty level guy. Even keeled emotionally. Do you jump up in the air and celebrate when Tynes hits the field goal, or do you just pump the fist and say, okay, let's get in the locker room?
I'll just say thank you.
Thank you, and let's go. What a game. That was a phenomenal game. You guys had to beat some pretty good quarterbacks to get to the Super Bowl, and that is a testament to your defensive line, and we're gonna talk about them. Is you have some great guys up front. Some would say the best in the business right now. You got some of those guys, you inherited some of those guys, and then you brought some of them in. How much say do you have when draft time comes around? Do you talk with Spags first, and then he talks with Coughlin? How do the needs? We watch the NFL draft. Some of us watch every pick that happens. How does that happen as an organization? Do all the coaches sit around a table and just throw out what they need?
Jerry Reese has an excellent program. His program is set up, and each individual coach, has to do their job in the selection process. And he really listens to us. He listens to the scouts. He listens to, obviously our coordinators and our head coach. But we're responsible for our own positions to really be the core guys. And then I'll go in and I'll show Steve, who I believe are the top guys, and then he say, don't rank them. So then he don't tell me anything. And then he takes the names, and then he just he does his analysis, and then we all get together. But Jerry Reese is excellent. Okay. I mean, it's one of the greatest programs I've ever seen. Well, I say that too, but it's an excellent program.
Sure.